Hello and welcome to the Global Consciousness Summit 1.0. I'm Dr. Jim Hardt, and I'm here to share with you Theta EEG brainwaves and how they can be used for reading in the Akashic Records. And as a special treat, we have the brainwaves of somebody having a powerful Theta mystical experience and a 3-minute video clip of that person talking about what that amazing experience was like. So we'll show you the brainwaves, and then we'll show you the video of the man talking about what it felt like when he was having those brainwaves. But first, let's look into the Akashic Records. The basis of access to Akasha is a brainwave pattern that is characterized by mystical theta, not drowsy theta. Most sleep researchers would know a lot about drowsy theta. It looks like pointy little croquet wickets. But mystical theta looks like it's sinusoidal like alpha, and it occurs in spindles like alpha. So we're going to introduce you to mystical theta today. The logo of Biocybernaut, which represents a halo, is actually a nearly phi ratio torus. And why I'm a biocybernaut? Well, a biocybernaut is to inner space what an astronaut is to outer space. Naut is a Greek suffix that implies someone who goes on an adventure. The first use, I think, was Jason in the Argonauts, where Jason and some intrepid friends went off on these adventures to find the golden fleece and bring it back to the king, which was the price of Jason being able to win the hand of the king's daughter in marriage. Well, we're biocybernauts here. The Akashic Records is the library of all knowledge that was, is, and will be. It's an energetic library. It's not a physical library in the sky somewhere. And so to access it, we need to learn the ways of mystical theta. Akasha is a Sanskrit word which means primordial substance. The roots of this work are in India, and it has a definite Sanskrit perspective. Madame Blavatsky at one point founded the Theosophical Society, which did work in the Akashic Records. Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious also points in this direction. And there are religious roots. Edgar Casey, the dreaming saint, is an example of a Christian who was accessing the Akashic Records. And then we have Anne Jensen's tradition, which is that of reading in the Akashic Records. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, you can see her here. She founded the Theosophical Society and the Theosophical University Press. And they did a lot of work with the primordial substance, Akasha, and divine thought. Carl Gustav Jung, with his concept of the collective unconscious, in Jung's view, material in the collective unconscious never came from our current environment. It's not part of our learning. It is a part of the mind that is determined by heredity in Jung's view. So he said, we inherit as part of our humanity a collective unconscious. The mind is prefigured by evolution just as the body is. The individual is linked to the past of the entire species and the long stretch of evolution of the organism. Jung thus placed the psyche within the evolutionary process. And here we have Edgar Casey. Edgar Casey is known as the dreaming saint. And even though he was a devout Christian, he would go into states. He would lie down, close his eyes, fold his hands over his stomach, and go into what we brain scientists know would be a theta state, in which he would access the Akashic Records and he would answer questions of people from the Akashic Records. When individuals asked Edgar Casey how they could become more psychic themselves, he responded by saying that the goal should be to become more spiritual, for he said, psychic is of the soul. From Casey's perspective, as individuals became more spiritual, psychic ability would develop naturally. Well, we can go beyond Casey's perspective because we know some brain science now. In his lying down, eyes closed posture, he was not asleep, he was awake, but in a deep state. We know that he would be having theta brainwaves. And so how do theta brainwaves relate to spirituality? Well, to answer this question, we can look at a study done in Japan by Kasamatsu and Harai with Zen meditators. Kasamatsu and Harai approached Zen masters in both of the main traditions of Zen, Soto and Rinzai. Like Christianity has two main branches, Protestant and Catholic. And so they asked permission of the Zen masters to record brainwaves of the Zen monks while they were doing their Zazen meditation. Permission was granted. So then the scientists asked the Zen masters to rate the level of spiritual development of the monks. Remember, Casey here is saying that as individuals become more spiritual, psychic ability would develop naturally. So the Zen masters did this. They rated the level of spiritual development of their monks, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Then when the scientists, Kasamatsu and Harai, measured the brainwaves of the monks as they were sitting in Zazen meditation, what they found was the higher the rated level of spiritual development, the more alpha they showed in their records. So we know that increased alpha is associated with increased spirituality. But remember, they had beginner, intermediate, and advanced. In the beginning Zen monks, alpha developed only in the back of the head. That was usually monks with 1 to 6 years of experience. In the intermediate Zen, which was 6 to 21 years, the alpha spread forward on the head, so it was a more whole head phenomenon. And in the advanced monks, which ranged from 21 to 40 years of Zen meditative experience, there were those changes plus a slight slowing of the alpha and the emergence of theta brainwaves from the frontal sites. So as spiritual development progressed in Zen meditation, alpha increased at the back of the head, spread forward on the head, slowed a little bit, and then theta brainwaves emerged at frontal sites. So instead of Casey's simplistic report or view that as individuals become more spiritual, psychic ability would develop naturally, we now see a progression where alpha increases at the back of the head, spreads forward on the head, slows a little in frequency, and then theta waves develop. And so the theta waves are of particular interest to reading in the Akashic Records. Edgar Casey was a loving husband and father and a devoted Sunday school teacher. He demonstrated the uncanny ability to put himself into some kind of self-induced near sleep state, which we brain scientists know as theta brainwaves, by lying down on a couch, closing his eyes and folding his hands over his stomach. In this state of relaxation and meditation, he was able to place his mind in contact with all time and space. That's the Akashic Records. From this state, he could respond to questions as diverse as, what are the secrets of the universe? And how can I remove a wart? Edgar Casey's responses to these questions came to be called readings. And they contain insights so valuable that even to this day, individuals have found practical help for everything from maintaining a well-balanced diet and improving human relationships to overcoming life-threatening illnesses and experiencing a closer walk with God. Even though Edgar Casey was a devout Christian, he came to recognize that he was doing these readings from a source known as the Akashic Records, which contains all knowledge that was, is, and ever will be. Okay, what are some practical applications of having mystical theta brainwaves? Well, I studied a man came for Biocybernaut training one time, who had grown his company from 0 to $200 million in just 2 years. And he did this with very unusual brainwaves. He had big frontal theta, which enabled him to access the Akashic Records, and come up with answers to otherwise impossible questions. And then he had big occipital alpha, which allowed him to creatively apply the information he pulled out of the Akashic Records and to apply it in real world situations so he could grow his company from 0 to $200 million in just 2 years. Now here's an example of his brainwaves. We see 8 channels here. This is O1 and O2, the occipitals at the back of the head with huge alpha. There's left and right central, C3 and C4 at the top of the head. There's T3 and T4, the temporals at the side of the head. And here, F3 and F4, these are the frontals at the front of the head. And as at the top of the screen, you can see the little tick marks, which are 1 second gradations. And so you can see about 10 waves per second, which is alpha. And you can see more like 5 waves per second down here, which is theta. So this guy has huge frontal theta, amplitudes maybe even bigger than his occipital alpha, which is exceedingly unusual. Many people's theta is only 10 or 20% as big as their alpha. But this guy, the theta is gigantic. The alpha is also very big. And so with the theta waves, he can pull information out of the Akashic Records, and then with his alpha, he can creatively apply it into solving real-world problems. This extraordinarily valuable brainwave pattern is trainable with Biocybernaut Alpha training and Theta training programs. Again, we can see big occipital alpha and big frontal theta. We'll show you a few more snapshots. So you can see it's not just a one of, he was running this pattern pretty consistently. Big occipital alpha and big frontal theta. The theta is a little more sporadic. The alpha is more continuous. Okay, now let's talk about Ann Jensen. Ann Jensen was the best student of my favorite Akashic Records reader. And she came and she did Alpha 1, then she did Alpha 2, and then her third week, she did Theta 1. Now, in her tradition, they had a secret prayer that they would say that would give them access to the Akashic Records. Well, after her Theta training, she was able to simply turn on Theta and be in the Akashic Records, and she didn't need to use the secret prayer that she had been taught in her Akashic Records reading tradition. Ann Jensen was a skilled reader in the Akashic Records, and I'm going to show you some graphs of her doing Theta feedback training on day 7 of her Theta 1 brainwave training at Biocybernaut. I'm going to show you both her slow Theta and her fast Theta. Okay, so the bottom axis is time, and then these are the Theta scores. Here's the head site, so you can see the color coding, so to know what brainwaves are being produced. The frontal Theta, we're looking at slow Theta here. The frontal Theta is purple and orange, and the central Theta is red and yellow. So you can see in the beginning of her session, this is day 7, there was a big increase in the purple and orange, but which is the frontal Theta, and an even bigger increase in the central Theta. Then she had a setback, and she brought it up again. And then a second setback, and then what she showed was primarily frontal Theta. This is like the pattern you see in Zen meditation. Now, let's look at the fast Theta, which is even bigger. She had stronger amplitudes in the fast Theta. And again, she had an increase in frontal and central Theta. It dropped off, she recovered, strong central and frontal Theta, and then she went into purely frontal Theta toward the end. Okay, now we're going to look at brainwaves from Dean Stoich. It's a personal breakthrough into mystical Theta that he experienced on day 5 of his Alpha 1 training at Biocybernaut. We'll first show you his brainwaves, which are remarkable, absolutely remarkable, massive amounts of Theta all the way across the head. And then we'll show you his report, where still wearing electrodes, he had written down what the experience was like, and he reads that to us. So we get to see the brainwaves, and then we get to see the video of Dean talking about the experience. Now remember, we understand at Biocybernaut that brainwaves rule. Any experience that you have as a living human being, you have that only when you have the appropriate underlying pattern of brainwaves. So let's show you Dean's brainwaves, and then let's show you the video where he's talking about what the experience was, the fantastic mystical experience of having those huge theta brainwaves. Okay, so here we see 60 seconds of brainwaves on the page. Now he's initially cruising along, producing alpha, and then out of nowhere, bam, this huge theta starts. This is left occipital, right occipital theta, left and right central, left and right temporal, and left and right frontal. He's got these massive theta waves all across the head. And you can see it comes in spindles, just like alpha does. It continues for another minute. The blue area is where in the Biocybernaut alpha trainings, the feedback tones stop, and the scores, to give you your feedback scores for the last 2-minute epoch, they show up on the screen. Well, he doesn't open his eyes. He's in a bliss state, and he just keeps powering right through. So the tones stop, feedback tones stop, scores come on. He does not take any notice of that because he's absorbed in this powerful state of mystical theta. So here we see another full minute of recording, and there's another full minute of his massive mystical theta. And then you can see it just tapers off, and just before the scores come up, he drops back into his normal brainwave. He opens his eyes, you can see the eye blink and the movement, and then he's out of the state and his alpha is back here. He makes some body movement. And so now what we want to show you is how that continued. Normal brainwaves after this incredible, we're going back now, this incredible experience where the theta blasted out all the way across the head. There's almost a full minute, there's another full minute, and then it tapers off and he goes back into more normal brainwaves. And then what we can do is take one of those massive theta bursts and show you expanded by putting 30 seconds on the page so you can see more detail. And we can even expand it so you can see 15 seconds on the page. And there you can actually count the frequency because from here to here is 1 second. You can actually count what the frequency is of that theta. And we go back to the logo for Biocybernaut. And then we're going to show you the video. This is Dean Stoyage now talking about that incredible experience. And as you can see, he's wearing his Biocybernaut brainwave training electrodes.
Alpha training. While in a dark chamber by myself, being able to hear my brain working represented with audio feedback indicating exact location of my brain that is transmitting the alpha frequency, the question popped in my awareness. Am I being efficient enough with my time? So many things to do, work and joy related, beautiful weather in Sedona, and I don't get to see the sun. Am I doing the best with my time? I answered not. At the same time, I had a question. What am I doing here? How I ended up being in this place, surrounded by good-hearted people, meeting and getting to know how much love there is. And I remember how much love there is in me, how easy it is to love everyone. Started with Jared and Christian, being grateful for how open and human they are. How beautiful it is to see the pure innocence and huge power of Dr. Hardt at the same time. How inspiring all of this is, and I just loved all and always. And I realized that love is what I am, and love is all there is. The question stayed with me when I got completely consumed by love after I gave it all away. I loved it all to the fullest, and everything loved me back. The question, why am I here? More questions popped from somewhere. And am I a part of a bigger plan? Is there a reason for me to be on this planet? How I ended up here? Am I restricted and controlled or free and limitless? What am I made of, if not of pure light and love? The questions were answers at the same time. I was asking those with little or not at all using my conscious brain. My brain stepped aside and I loved it. My consciousness was just sitting back enjoying the show, as well as me, sitting in the blessed space of my chamber going to a ride while I was clearly seeing the sky covered with millions of stars, and peace and quiet was all around me. As I was facing the stars, I became aware that I am up high in the darkness of upper atmosphere, being aware of my beautiful planet behind me. My beautiful earth was down below, and without turning, I felt the beauty, love, and protection that earth gives us. And I loved the earth back. And I touched every ocean, felt the fish in the water. I was with birds experiencing and feeling the air entering and making love to my lungs. I touched every tree, every human, dog, bird, mouse, ant, every little flower and grass that will last just for a day or two. Every living thing on my planet, realizing that everything is alive, and it's not the same like me, but it is me. I was hugging the planet and the love filled me up over and over again. I got my answers without asking them. I got all the answers, and what can I say is that what can I say now is that trying to translate them in words, it feels like driving a truck over a rice paper. This is why the truth cannot be told, it has to be experienced, and therein is the beauty of life that is designed to create joy and peace between all living, and all is living, and it is all love and light. I am love, and I am light, and that is all I am. Thank you.
So, a beautiful first-person account of mystical theta. You saw his brainwaves, massive theta all the way across the head, occurring in alpha-like spindles, and all that love to be experienced. Light and love, and that's all I am. And with those brainwaves, those mystical theta brainwaves, you can access the Akashic Records. So thank you for attending this talk on Theta EEG brainwaves for Akashic Records reading and mystical theta experiences, told by Dean Storch. Thank you for attending. Bye for now.